prepared a brief PowerPoint that just lays out all the things that we're doing for those of you who may want to be more engaged with us in the future. And this PowerPoint pretty much highlights some of the things that we're doing, and I'll just be very brief in going through these things. So the organization was started in 2017. So we've been around, I guess, what, 3.5 years now. And really the purpose was to increase the voices of women of color in peace and security, foreign policy, national security issues. And because of the recognition of the important role that we play, but are not given a voice to, but also because the lack of peace and security affects women of color, people of color, and women of color, particularly around the world. Um, in the time that we've established, there are a number of things that we have done, and you can always visit the website if you want to see more. But we now have several chapters. We're going to be opening up our chapter in Georgia in 2 weeks, in Atlanta, and that'll be great. We have a number of working groups, which if you're interested, you can join the organization and also be part of any of these working groups, which are more specialized in discussing issues that members are very interested in. And you can see the variety of issues that are here. And we also have a number of projects and initiatives, as you can see in front of you, a lot of them that are working on the pipeline, for example, the Young Ambassadors Program and the GENSR program. We also have a strong mentorship program, including a pipeline fellowship program, which focuses on junior high school, and college students, and also a male mentorship initiative. We have an art forum that matches art and policy. We have the Race Across the Pond, which is another initiative that talks about racial issues around the world. And then we have Organs in Solidarity Project Initiative, which has over 150 to 200 organizations that are working together to find ways to ensure that we prevent racism and discrimination in our organizations and promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. All of these things you can find out on the website, so I won't go into a lot of detail, but I would ask you to go visit, and you can also visit the new HBCU Connection page that's also on the website. And the information about the website is actually on the screen in front of you as well. So we're really happy to have the HBCU Connection as part of the work that we're doing in WCAPS. And as I said, we're going to be building that and engaging with colleges and universities who are part of the HBCU Connection. We'll want to get involved in our organization and solidarity project as well. So we really hope that those of you who are listening will remain engaged in what we're trying to do and follow the work that we're doing. And we always welcome ideas for things that we can be doing better. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it back over to Shambalia to lead us into our next part of our discussion. Thank you all for being here. And again, thank you to all the amazing panelists and moderators.
Let me unmute myself. All right, now, let me act like I was raised in a technology generation and I know how to do the basics like unmute myself. Okay, thank you so much, Ambassador Jenkins, for giving everyone a insight into your passion project, which has inspired so many of our passion projects, which is WCAPS. And as Ambassador Jenkins stated, please go to wcaps.org to learn more about the program. So what I am going to do before I transfer over to our phenomenal team member, Lindsay, is that I'm going to give you all a brief overview of HBCU Connection. So just a brief history about the reason why I was inspired to create this initiative. So many of you who have logged in today that knows me personally knows that I am a born and raised native Californian. I see my little sisters on the chat today. And one of the things that I knew that I wanted to do in life was go to a HBCU. I didn't care which one I was going to attend as long as they had my major, which was international relations. So of all the colleges that I looked and searched for, Shaw University was the institution at that time that specifically had my major, international relations. So that's how I ended up going into my field as well as choosing the institution that I did. When I was a student at Shaw University, my advisor at that time, Dr. Lucky Amadi, gave us the immense opportunity to be involved in National Model UN, National Model NATO, as well as National Model African Union, which is held still to this day on the campus of Howard University. However, when we would attend National Model UN as well as National Model NATO, we would be one of the only, if not the only, HBCU represented. Not only that, we also unfortunately experienced inside this global space issues of race and racism. Simply because people were like, oh, there's colleges for Black people. Why is that? And all of the negative connotations that came along with that. Upon graduating from Shaw University, I was blessed with the opportunity to work, live, volunteer in Jamaica and in Kenya. And during my time in Kenya, I had the opportunity to really share more about my institution. But not only that, I also saw who was controlling the narrative about the African American culture. And when I was sharing with my colleagues, they were really intrigued about these historical institutions. So with that being said, that just always sat in the back of my mind about how can we be able to get our institutions into this global field, because I know historically, as well as today, HBCU produces some of the most phenomenal intellectual individuals that I have ever come into counter with, and that has done some phenomenal things in the world. So therefore, that's what brought me to creating HBCU Connection. And my vision is to advance and strengthen HBCU's pathways in the globalized society. And as you can see with our mission is that we are going to leverage and lead efforts and leverage the expertise of the global community to forge opportunities, increase awareness and engagements, action and resources for HBCUs, students, alumni, and faculty. And I was very intentional in regards to making sure that we include the full community of the HBCU family. That's why you see alumni and faculty there as well. I want us to be able to put HBCUs in a position that we are leading experts within inside the global society. I want to see international spaces tapping faculty members to come in and give their expert opinion in regards to publications or commentaries or anything of that sort. I want to make sure that we are expanding the opportunities for HBCU students to not only be bilingual, but to be multilingual. We want to be able to create opportunities for HBCU alumni who are looking for professional development inside their workspace. If they have majored in medicine, but now they're saying that, hey, I'm going to venture out into infectious diseases and start learning more about different medical spaces that were not taught to me when we were here, and just create a very innovative space where we are allowing HBCUs to be the leaders within this, and to not only that, when the international community think of the United States, we want to make sure that they are not just thinking of the US and just this broad umbrella of a culture, but as well as all of the subcultures and what we are able to bring into the space. So when you have an opportunity, and if you are staying until 5:15, Ambassador Bonnie and I will be doing a fireside chat with Lindsay, where we are going to discuss a little bit more about the purpose and goals of WCAPS HBCUs, next steps, as well as how you all can be able to be involved. And with that being said, Lindsay. Hey, Lindsay, how
I'm
are you?
here. I'm good, Shimbalia. I'm excited, and I hope all of you all are excited as well. I just want to begin by saying thank you so much to Ambassador Jenkins and Shambalia, and just in terms of all of their efforts, in terms of really putting internationalization and global endeavors with WCAPS, leading the charge in that regard. And so I'm so excited for this launch of the WCAPS HBCU connection to really highlight the seminal contributions that these institutions, our institutions, have made and continue to make globally. One of our objectives for today is to really foster a greater level of awareness, capacity, community, and alliance building. um, I really wanted to begin today by just honoring the legacy of HBCUs in all things international, from inception to the present. And as we think about higher education for African Americans, we have to consider historical context, what it looked like for newly emancipated African Americans in the post antebellum South and their desire for self reliance and agency over their education. Private HBCUs existed prior to emancipation, dating as far back as 1837 with the founding of Cheyney University in Pennsylvania. In 1890, the Second Morrill Act, which led to the establishment of 19 Black state supported institutions, joined the list of existing private colleges. HBCUs were founded specifically with the intent to educate African Americans during an era where most institutions of higher education refused their admission. These institutions, our institutions, were predicated on their commitment to educating and serving students regardless of race, ethnicity, age, gender, socioeconomic status. And that legacy of HBCUs lives on today. I am just so incredibly just fortunate to really think about the importance of internationalization. When we think about internationalization, and also how it's really embedded into the historical legacy, the very ethos of historically Black colleges and universities, the linkages HBCU leadership established with African nations predate the creation of the Fulbright-Hays program. And HBCUs have been providing access to international students beyond our national borders for more than 140 years. Following the height of the Transcontinental Railroad expansion back in 1870, three Chinese students received full scholarships and enrolled at Howard University Normal School. And shout out to Tuskegee, as early as 1899, Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University, established partnerships to improve cotton gin in Togo. I would definitely be remiss if I did not acknowledge the contributions of great women graduates operating in conjunction with the African American Episcopal Church. Charlotte McKelley, leading South African activist and suffragist, earned her degree from Wilberforce University in 1903. She later went on to be the president of the African National Congress Women's League, where her efforts were instrumental in creating the voice of women in South African political movements. Anna Julia Cooper, a pioneer and Black feminist thought and a graduate of St. Augustine University, became the first Black female to earn her PhD in 1924 from the University of Paris in Saint-Bon, France. So HBCUs have been educating great leaders since our inception. We have led and graduated presidents like Nnamdi Azikiwe and Kwame Nkrumah, presidents of Nigeria and Ghana. We have educated and graduated literary luminaries like Alex Haley, a graduate from Alcorn State University, whose depiction of his family history from Gambia to freedom captivated more than 100 million Americans on TV. So these examples highlight the prevalence of internationalization at HBCU campuses, and they represent foundational models to frame contemporary conversations, discourse, and action moving forward. So today is not the beginning, but rather the continuation of our collective efforts forward. So I am so excited. I hope that you all are excited too. We have a dynamic group of panelists and also moderators lined up for you today. So sit back, get ready, enjoy. You are in for a real treat. I am going to go ahead and, I see all these people in the chat, so shout out to St. Aug. I'm going to turn it back over to Shambalia, who is going to go ahead and introduce our panelists.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. And because you gave a shout out to St. Aug, and one of my good friends is from my rival school, I want to give a shout out to my esteemed alma mater, Shaw University. That's for you, Juanita. So with that being said, we are gearing up for our first panel, and this phenomenal system that is serving as the moderator today, I don't know how much I can say about her, but I am just going to read directly to you what is in her bio briefly. So Asha Castleberry Hernandez, who is also my soror, is an adjunct faculty professor at Fordham University. She teaches international politics, U.S. foreign policy, and United Nations peace operations. A U.S. Army veteran, Asha recently completed a 30-month deployment in the Middle East. Since the 2014 ISIL insurgent in Iraq, she served for Combined Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve in Iraq and Kuwait, as well as many other places. Asha is a proud alumna of Hampton University. Asha, I am going to pass it over to you and give you the space to introduce our phenomenal first panel of HBCU presidents.
Yes, thank you so much. It's such a privilege and honor to be here and to introduce our panelists. So first, I'm going to just open it up with the panelists. Let me first bring their name up. Sorry for the delay. Okay, so first we have here, Dr. Felicia and Nav, who's the president of Alcorn State University. Please join us, as well as Dr. Brenda A. Allen, president of Lincoln University. And then we also have Dr. Cynthia Warwick, who is the president of Stillman College. Great. Hello, everyone. Hi.
Hi.
Great. So we're going to start off with some questions and then, keep the conversation going. And this is going to be a great engagement. And the first and foremost is, the focus on the HBCU connection and how we can do a better job of connecting in terms of careers in foreign policy. So I'm just so excited to join everyone here and to find out from you what are some of the insights you could provide as far as what we're doing now and how we can improve, or some recommendations in the near future. So to start off with the first question, so I'm just reading here. To thrive in the global competitive landscape, local careers have evolved accordingly. And with unique ways to customize majors, finding a career path in the global sector is more attainable. So how are HBCUs using this innovation as an opportunity to collaborate with traditional and unique career spaces to provide a broader network and exposure to new opportunities? So Dr. Brenda Allen, would you like to go first?
Oh, all right, so thank you. And hi, Professor President Warwick, good to see you. And thank you for the invitation. I think one of the greatest challenges facing higher education in general today is preparing students for this global knowledge-based economy, one that's very dynamic. The statistic that drives me as a leader of an institution is always in the back of my mind, thinking about the idea that the jobs that we are actually preparing our students for today probably don't exist. And so we are actually in the process of educating people for a very unknown world that's evolving every day. And so for that reason, I am and have always been a staunch proponent of the liberal arts. Liberal arts allow students to choose a major that they may have passion about, but we use that major as the primary vehicle for honing the essential skills that will allow them to tool and retool as the context warrants. And so as I look at employer surveys and what the needs are, both nationally and global, folk are not necessarily always interested in whether or not you majored in X or you majored in Y, but they're looking for individuals who are really strong intellectually, individuals who are good in communication, both oral and written. We're looking for students who have great problem solving skills, individuals who are good critical thinkers, quantitatively literate, and so on. And so I think that in order to prepare our students at historically Black colleges to be able to engage in the economy globally, we have to be aware that there's something dynamic about what's going on. And really our job right now is to prepare them to be lifelong learners so that they can actually be an active part of creating some of these new careers that are emerging every day.
Thank you for your comment. I like how you say when the emerging careers, because we are seeing that with regards to, especially with technology and STEM and how that intersects with foreign policy or international affairs. So that is a point that we definitely want to elaborate more as we move forward. But yes, it's always evolving. So absolutely. And Dr. Stillman, how do you feel in terms of this question?
Let me unmute.
Okay.
I'm optimistic about the new administration because I think a lot of the activities that occur between HBCUs and international institutions and organizations and businesses are provided through opportunities from the federal government. And if you remember, the Obama administration launched the US-Brazil Scientific Program where students from Brazil could attend institutions in engineering and science in the United States. And certainly HBCUs participated in that program. And I was able to travel to Brazil to 3 institutions, well, actually 4 institutions where students were coming from Brazil to South Carolina State when I was the interim president there. And so I think we can expect that there'll be similar programs developed from the Biden-Harris administration that will promote these strategic partnerships in science, but as well as my colleague at Lincoln, Dr. Allen, it's good to see you too, Dr. Nave. You know, that we'll start seeing more in the liberal arts because I know one program that and business. One program that Stillman received a grant from the State Department, the 100,000 Strong in America's program, we partnered with an institute in Brazil on innovation and green technology. And that was out of our business school and our school of education. So I think there are many ways in terms of multidisciplinary activities. You do not have to major in international affairs to move into international affairs, because I think you can create opportunities at your institution to build your resume and to take advantage of internships and research opportunities, such as our partnership with Brazil. We also established a relationship with Emerson College, where we send students to the Netherlands for the James Baldwin Writers Colony in the Netherlands. And so those are journalism students, and they learn about the history of the Harlem Renaissance and Black arts movement in Europe. So we've had students do that, and we also work with our partners that are nearby. The University of Alabama is right up the street from Stillman. We're in Tuscaloosa. And we've had a long-standing partnership with the University of Alabama since the Civil Rights Movement. And so we partner with them on the UA Stillman Ghana partnership. So we had a symposium that had to go virtual in August. So all of these things, just like this panel, is going virtual, but I guess it creates an opportunity for everyone, not just in the United States, but globally. So I expect that this forum will be viewed by our colleagues across the oceans, and we'll be able to extend more opportunities for our students to study abroad, as well as exchange programs for research and other opportunities.
Thank you, Dr. Stillman. I love your point about engaging in Brazil, because what stands out in Brazil, to me, when I think of Brazil, I think of Black people in Brazil, and how when African Americans engage with Black people in Brazil, Brazil is the most populated country in terms of Black people in the Western Hemisphere. So it's very significant to note, and Condoleezza Rice always mentions that. So that's a wonderful program. Okay, now Dr. Nave, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but Nave, right? Navy? Yeah. Okay. Could you share your perspective?
Thank you, Aisha. Did I get that correct?
That's fine. Oh, Asha.
Asha. Very much. I echo my colleagues' points and just will add, hopefully, in a couple of different areas to the conversation that they've provided. It's critically important that we continue to engage with international opportunities and exposure for our students, both in the research space, in the curricular space, as well as in the service space, and using multiple modalities in order to deliver that interaction, whether it's face-to-face or actual immersion of our students in study abroads or exchange experiences, or if it's through having internationalizing or having international students on our campus. But it's also very important to make sure that we prepare these students, particularly for institutions like Alcorn, where our students are coming from a small rural environment, where many of them have not had an opportunity to travel to many states, let alone other countries, that we make sure that they're not only academically prepared, but they're also socially prepared for the experience that they're being exposed to. And that's where our partnerships with federal agencies, with foundations, with corporate partners who are global comes into play in helping us develop very holistic approaches to making sure that our students are prepared and ready to move forward. And so I think as we continue to explore these ventures and opportunities and prepare our students for those careers that are yet to be known, it's important that we keep in mind what's going to be important for them in the future to have those transferable skills, that although they may major in English, they may find themselves working in an area that's totally outside of English and having to communicate effectively with individuals who are all around the world. When I graduated in '96, they would often tell us our competitors were, 2, 3, 4 states apart. Now, as our students graduate, they're competing literally with students from all around the world. And so we need to make sure that they are definitely prepared in a comprehensive way for the experience that they're getting ready to go into. And the last point I make is that we definitely should tap into our international faculty. We have a group of individuals on our campus who can help us begin to develop what that international program, international experience, international look for our students need to be, as well as using them to network, not using them, I'm sorry, partnering with them or expanding on their relationships and networks that they have in order to create those partnerships, whether it be in Brazil, Cuba, Africa, in European countries with other institutions, so that our students have access to as many opportunities as possible. And so I think this is critically important for us to make sure that our students are prepared, that they continue to be competitive, not just amongst this subset population, but competitive among all students.
Thank you so much, Dr. Navy. That is so important because I was a study abroad student at Hampton University to China, and it was a cultural shock. And I wish I had more tools to prepare me. Although it was a great experience, preparation is definitely a big deal, especially when you're going on all the way on the other side of the world. So yeah, that's an excellent point. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on now to the next question. As we embark on the digital frontier with the increased use of technology, how can HBCUs prepare future leaders for a global career? Dr. Allen, would you like to start?
I think that technology offers our institutions a great option for engaging in more international interaction. So, one of the things that is often a challenge on campuses that may be challenged financially is that study away, especially in other countries, is very expensive. And so, there are places that are well established and have well established connections and finances and endowments that allow their students to travel all over the world and spend time. And often for some of our institutions, especially if we're small, study abroad is often not an option. And especially when we think about the number of students that we serve who are first generation, who are Pell eligible, where financially if parents can afford that. But technology is wonderful. I mean, we used it and we're using it to get through coronavirus. We're using it now, but think about the opportunities. We can do courses in real time in countries. We can share faculty in that way. We can share students in that way. We can have social interactions and cultural exchanges through the use of technology. And so I think about international and technology as something that we have not maximized the use for, especially as we are preparing students for this real global economy. And one of the best ways to do that is to get people embedded in those cultures. But if you can't afford to be there, then technological exchange, I think, is a great avenue and one that could be more affordable for some of our students to get some of that experience that you said, the preparation. You can prepare just through Zoom, right? And be ready to take on the world. So I think we should be thinking more deeply about exchanges and using technology as the vehicle for being able to do that.
And Dr. Work, can you share your perspective?
Well, I agree, and I think we've learned so much this past year about the use and the broad expansion of technology use in higher education, and especially locally as well as globally. We've established a partnership with the Bahamas right after the hurricane. I had recruited some students to be in the choir right before, and then when the hurricane hit, and I found out that the institutions on the island had been destroyed, and the two students that were here, they're like, Dr. Warwick, our friend's college was destroyed. What can we do? And so we are able to find funding to bring several students from the Bahamas. But then when the pandemic hit, then, you know, they were able to continue their education through technology and the online program. And then we've also admitted new students through our online program internationally because of the global travel ban. And so a lot of, you know, barriers were overcome by technology in terms of providing education. But the other thing I would say that's critical, and something that I know myself and my colleagues are involved in, we've launched a cybersecurity program, because what we're finding, and we've seen a lot in these last elections, about how technology is misused to spread lies and different kinds of issues. And so we do need people, and you mentioned policy initially, but we do need cybersecurity professionals who are trained in the liberal arts, who understand culture and all of these various areas, because how do you distinguish between good information and fake news? And and then you have all of the hacking that's going on. And so those technologies, because the the internet is the World Wide Web, it connects to everyone, but we need police for that technology. We need security. We need to protect the integrity of the information that we share. And programs like cybersecurity and cyber infrastructure and those types of security-based programs are greatly needed, and HBCUs are quickly getting involved into this new space. So I think that when we have persons like ourselves, our students, who have a different perspective of Black Lives Matter, they can be able to insert their culture into this decision making that other people's views are colorblind. And we understand, you know, when someone is discriminating against us. We understand that, and having those kinds of professionals, especially from HBCUs, be in a position to distinguish between um, accurate information and are not is important. You know, we see that with the videos of people getting shot, and if we didn't have that video transcript, a lot of people wouldn't believe that Black people were being disproportionately maltreated. So technology has given us a lot of tools to advance not only our culture, but to learn about other cultures, and to ensure the safety of our citizens and the integrity of our communications.
Dr. Work, that is such an excellent point, and we've seen that in 2016 in presidential elections, where we have foreign adversaries targeting us during their elections, especially Black churches in the South, or a lot of African Americans, and also with the recent killing of George Floyd. George Floyd was used as propaganda in China as a way to undermine American democracy. I mean, there's so many things coming out with this, and I do agree we need to definitely have cybersecurity experts. And Congressman Anthony Brown is really big on producing more cybersecurity experts coming out of HBCUs. So it's an excellent point. Dr. Navy, what do you think?
Sure. Again, I echo the comments from my colleagues, and we'll try to take a different stab at it. COVID-19 is disrupted so much, continues to present us with a number of challenges, but I think we all would agree. On the flip side of that, it's also pulled the covers off some of our dirty or unknown secrets where we have disparities, whether they are in healthcare, education, housing, access to technology infrastructure. It has exposed that as well. And, I'm very, heavy-hearted about the tragic loss. But at the same time, I think it's accelerated our opportunity to really expose and start to address some of these disparities that have been around for decades in a meaningful, very meaningful way. When I think about my students who enter Alcorn, and I would venture to say that we're like most, if not all, institutions across the country, they do not enter in the same place, in particular as it relates to technology and what their access to technology has been. And so coming into the institution, it's important that we do our best in order to try to level that playing field and expose them to as much technology, not just in majors, but being functionally literate users of technology when they leave the institution. Yes, they have iPhones, they come out of the womb with them. Yes, they play all kind of video games, but they're really not as educated as they need to be as it relates to being a working professional. And so it's incumbent upon us to they already have the innovative and creative mindset, but to take that and harness that in helping them be better prepared to leave as technologically literate individuals to go into a continuous advance in technology world. My background is engineering, and when I first started off as an assistant professor in the mechanical engineering department, they had a program partnership, and I'm not going to remember the exact name of it, but it was a partnership between that institution in Texas and international institution where they worked on a common project. And the students had an opportunity to work with diverse populations, different time zones. They had to figure out how to work as a team to solve a problem. I think those are opportunities that we should explore more and scale those types of activities in order to make sure that our students are prepared with, technologies being here, Zoom, Microsoft, Teams, that was all here before COVID. But we didn't move probably as fast as we should have in adopting those platforms in our educational model. And so we were kicking and screaming and kind of dragging our feet in utilizing those platforms and technologies that were available to us. Well, COVID, it let us know that we had to pivot, and we had to pivot very quickly. We had to become very adept at using those technologies, and it tried to equip our institutions, which are all at different stages of being ready to have that technology and to use our students. And so as we continue to look at education, how we deliver education and the modality, making sure that we don't lose sight of student success, and making sure that our students leave our institutions equipped not just as consumers of technology, but also innovators, creators, entrepreneurs who are prepared and ready to be movers and shakers and leaders in this new global age.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your response, especially with the literacy, because we don't want to create a gap that widens over time to where not only the students, but the faculty having a hard time keeping up with the evolution and how rapid it's moving. And, that's a problem across so many domains in this country, but it's moving rapidly, and we need to make sure we can have the expertise to keep up, and it helps with job placements too as well. Okay, so I'm moving on to the last question, and we'll try to keep the answers a little short here so we can open up for Q&A. The last question is, HBCUs have a built in network of alumni experts who are uniquely cross-trained and transferable skills to contribute local perspectives in global landscape. From peace and security, international education, art, medicine, and languages, to name a few, how are HBCUs utilizing the built-in resource to create a hub of mentorship, training, and collaboration? I'll go with Dr. Allen again.
Okay. So Lincoln University has been international from its inception. And although thankfully our relationship with Africa has changed from the beginning till now, we have a long legacy of engagement throughout the diaspora. And part of what we try to do is use that network to bring all kind of knowledge to our students. So for example, we have a program that's called Lions Speak. We are Lincoln Lions. And it's an opportunity for alumni to actually engage in career services where they can bring any kind of topic to our student. And again, through technology, we're able to also access alumni who are on the international stage. We have alum who are continue to lead countries in Africa, who are ambassadors, who have all kind of international sort of global responsibilities. And we think that is as important to have those alum connect with our students today as it is to have, those who are in the more national, local jobs, corporate banks, and so on. So leveraging our alumni, especially through our career services programming, has been the best vehicle for getting our students connected with all the great resources that HBCU alums can bring to current students.
I definitely agree. Great. Dr. Warwick, what do you think?
I think that in Stillman's case, we had an alum who actually is very important, certainly important to Stillman. Stillman was founded by the Presbyterian Church USA. And this particular gentleman, he attended Hampton as well as got his divinity degree at Stillman, Reverend William Shepherd. And he got a pastorship in Atlanta and wasn't really happy. And he wanted to do something in Africa. And he was able to go on a mission to the Congo. And at that time, the Congo was under colonial rule by the Belgium. And it was King Leopold, who was a Belgian king, and he was doing all kinds of atrocities to Belgian, the Congo people. And Dr. Shepherd spoke up and really helped to move that change. He really helped to aid that country's civil rights and overturn that colonial rule. And so the Belgian Congo became a free state. And when we teach the history of Stillman and teach the history of our alumni, and I know the rich history at Lincoln, the rich history at Alcorn State, we all have people like that who have made a significant impact, not only locally, but internationally. They called Reverend Shepherd the Black Livingstone. And so, when we teach that to others, we kind of make that connection, but we're lucky that we still maintain our relationship with the Presbyterian Church. We still have that relationship with the Congo through the church. So we have speakers who come and connect with our students. They were physically present on campus 2 years ago, but now we can bridge that gap using technology. But I think those kinds of opportunities still exist for us to help. And I remember Dr. Nave talked about service. And I think that's what HBCUs really do, is that community service. And when you expand to the global community, we do that often. You know, we help in Haiti with that hurricane. We helped in the Dominican Republic. You know, Stillman participated in the Puerto Rican hurricane recovery. And so when you think about all of the community service acts that we do, we get a sense of not only pride, but responsibility, that we have a responsibility to other people of color who look like us, and that we do develop those relationships through our faculty, through our alumni, through our students who come on the campus from other countries, and that's how we build that global family, you know, across the diaspora. You know, wherever we are, we're thinking first about how can we help, how can we serve, and I think that's what sets HBCUs apart from other institutions.
Thank you so much, especially sharing about your point about the Congo. What an interesting partnership. Dr.
I think it's about collaboration and partnership, utilizing our alums, both in making the connections internationally, having them serve on those who have positions in companies and foundations and corporations that have international ties, having them inform and work with us in our career services and our departments and the like, but continuing to use them in a variety of ways throughout the organizational chain so that we can maximize and capitalize off of what their international relationships are.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now I would like to open up to Q&A, and I see one question here from Tracy Green. She says, do you have any advice for a student wishing to study in Ghana in the field of chemistry? Anyone like to answer?
Well, is that a undergraduate student, or is it someone who graduated? Because I know all of our institutions have undergraduate programs in chemistry. Stillman certainly does. Are they interested in graduate study or what? But I mean, that's one of the basic sciences. So most HBCUs have, you know, the biology, chemistry, physics programs.
I guess I was thinking if you are interested in graduate work in Ghana, you know, it's great universities there. And so the first thing I would do is reach out to someone in one of those departments in the country and really begin to start a conversation there. You know, sometimes because of funding and all kinds of things, you know, you may do your graduate study in the US, but definitely have an opportunity to connect from a research base with one of the institutions in Ghana or any of the universities on the continent. But I would say for any person who is interested in that, I would start with, you know, the flagship university in the country, and I would reach directly out to faculty members in one of the departments and just really begin a conversation there.
Okay, great. Next question we have, our organization, well, this is from Gregory Allen, Dr. Allen, Gregory Allen. Our organization Search for Common Ground is an international NGO whose mission is peace building in conflict geographies. How can we form partnerships with HBCUs to offer fellowships and internships in the sector?
Well, I think they just send us a letter outlining the opportunity and the program, how students are able to apply for the fellowships and apply for internships. We receive those types of inquiries all of the time. And so I think the challenge is really what someone mentioned before is the funding. If you're going to provide the transportation, the stipend, and the um, housing, then it's very easy to identify students who are interested and willing to participate in your program. But if those resources are not a part of the program, then it will be very difficult to attract students from HBCUs or students of color in general, because there's a demand for resources. They may have to work in the summer to help with a family matter or something. And so I think you have to ensure that the resources are combined with the program to support the student so that they benefit all around.
Yes, I thank you for making a comment about funding, because I would like to hear from everyone else, or Dr. Navi and Dr. Allen, what are some ways as far as how we could seek more funding for study abroad programs? Because that is a major challenge, especially for African American students or HBCU students, especially, and I'm a perfect example of that too as well. I made it to China, but I really struggled to seek funding for it. So do you have any recommendations?
So there are a lot of models though for funding study abroad. Sometimes for our institutions, we are reluctant to partner with some larger, predominantly white institutions that often take their students, which can cut the cost. So for example, at Lincoln, we're in close proximity to the University of Pennsylvania. They probably have all kinds of study abroad where they already have the resources for the faculty and other people to be there. And so creating partnerships with institutions like that, where the impact on the budget for the student is not as great for the institution, especially if they could partner with an institution that already has a well-established relationship. I know when I was at Smith College, part of helping students to be able to manage the study abroad was really working with institutions to do a sort of home-based tuition thing, where making sure that students can use the financial aid that they have at their institution. So I think it's called a homeschool price or something like that. I'm forgetting what it is, but again, great opportunities for students to be able to use the financial resources that they have, but you have to make sure that the institution is equivalent to that. And then what you're raising then might be some travel money or something like that, but it's not the whole thing. The other thing that I'm finding is that I've been really impressing upon many of my faculty members to think more about doing study abroad during the academic year, because in that way students can use their financial aid. It's harder when you do the summer because it's usually outside of the funding award year. So we're talking about extra money. But I think that is one of the areas, at least for us at Lincoln, we believe that these sort of experiential learning practices are essential for our students' ability to develop and go out into the world and really be productive citizens. And like I said in the beginning, study abroad is one of those really important things because you get a more global view of yourself, you increase your ability to work in diversity. It's just a great opportunity. And so really finding ways to invest and working with foundations who actually fund these types of experiences becomes a big priority for our institution, because we want to make sure that if we say to students, this is an important thing to do, I think we have to do the due diligence to sort of figure out the financial model that will allow them to be able to do that.
I echo Dr. Allen's points. The aspects I didn't hear mentioned, and maybe I missed them, in addition to, so that I'm not repeating what she said.
Dr. Navi, I think she paused.
I always have to see if it's me who froze, but okay.
Right. Okay. Well, just like Michelle Obama said, I'd rather travel 10,000 miles, learn about a country than read 10,000 books. So it's very important that we seek funding. But I think as we move forward, funding is getting a lot better to provide to students, because this country learned that this is very important, that most of us gain a global perspective. Great. So we'll end here. And I want to just thank Dr. Allen, Dr. Warwick, and Dr. Navi for participating. Everybody, please give a round of applause. Great. So now I'll move on to the next panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a very phenomenal panel discussion. That panel discussion again was about careers, local to global. How can we be able to train? Oh, Dr. Felicia, you made it back. We still have about 3 minutes before the next panel hops on. If you want to answer one of our questions that we didn't have opportunity to get to.
Sure.
Okay, so this question comes from Deja Love, who is an alumna of Lincoln University, Pennsylvania. And her question is, this may no longer hold true given VP Kamala Harris and the recent mainstream appreciation of HBCUs. However, how can we encourage young folks to attend HBCUs and not internalize racist messages from white mainstream society that often tell our young people that HBCUs are not valid or inferior?
The first thing I would say, I think having VP Harris in the White House is going to do wonders for the HBCU's visibility, reputation as well. But I would caution that we don't that we temper our expectations as well. She's going to be great, but we have a part to play and contribute in that as well. I think it's important that we tell our story and do a better job about visibility of our institutions, and not just within our own circles, but taking a more global view of how we share the successes of our students, of our alumni, of our faculty and our staff, to make sure that when prospective students, prospective partners or collaborators get to know or learn about our institutions, they learn about all of the wonderful things that we're doing currently, as well as the historical things that we've done in the past, so that they understand we are a proven product, that our students are highly trained, they do well, they are leaders, creative and innovative thinkers. But I do think we have to take control of our own narrative and message, that we have to be in the spaces and places that are sometimes uncomfortable, but are required if we are to make sure we make the case for why HBCUs are important and why they continue to answer the call for this country as it relates to educating a diverse population. You're muted.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're absolutely correct in regards to your response to Deja's question, because that's one of the experiences that I had when I traveled abroad, was that there was already a formed narrative when it came to the African American culture, and just by that alone, that contributed to a lot of folks just wanting to step back from anything aligned with African American our institutions. And so once we have more opportunities, and as we create more opportunities, because I want us to also remember that we are very innovative, and granted, we do unfortunately shoulder the burden of having difficulties with funding. However, we also are in a position now that we are able to be very innovative in our way of making sure that we are able to globalize our HBCUs in a more positive aspect than what has normally been seen on that end. So thank you so much for that. And I'm so happy that you was able to jump in on this last question, because this last question was simply phenomenal as it relates.
Let me just also add that we do need to be intentional. Money is not endless, but we do have resources, and this is a opportunity for us to definitely capture and make the most of it. But we can't be all things to all people, and so we have to be very mindful, not to stretch ourselves too thin. Make sure that we are clearly clear on our own vision, purpose, mission, and focus, and in our intentional efforts, utilize and leverage the resources that we have so that we can broaden and expand our reach and impact.
And with your final thoughts, we are actually going to take what you said, and we are going to pour that into another question that Helen asked, and we're going to pose that to our next panel, which I believe they are logging in right now. So again, thank you all for logging in for the first panel discussion, which was careers local to global. And I would like to again say thank you to our phenomenal panel and moderator, Asha Castleberry Hernandez, who is part of the WCAPS Board of Directors, Dr. Brenda Allen, who is the president of Lincoln University, Pennsylvania, Dr. Felicia Nave, please forgive me if I mispronounce, who is the president of Alcorn State University, and Dr. Cynthia Warwick, who is the president of Stillman College. So with that being said, we are going to take a quick 1-minute break as our next panel joins us.
Shall we start? Shambhala?
Yes, we can. So let's get started. So it brings me immense amount of honor to introduce my homegirl, my soror, my sister from my rival HBCU, who is logging in all the way from Ghana, West Africa, to moderate this panel today. Dr. Juanita Lewis is a global agricultural phenomenon. She is something that I have always strived to accomplish, which is receiving majority of all my degrees from HBCUs. She is an alumna of St. Augustine's, or as we call them, St. Aug University, as well as North Carolina Central University. This phenomenal woman has done something that is really important, that is very critical in regards to inspiring a lot of our students at HBCUs, as well as alum and faculty, and that is taking our HBCU education and globalizing it. She took a local career and she made it global. And right now she is in Ghana doing phenomenal work. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Juanita, who is going to moderate our panel entitled Education, Creating Academic Programs Through a Global Lens.
Thank you so much, Shambalia. I highly appreciate the shout out, and also happy to be moderating this panel. As Shambalia said, I am a proud two-time alumna of HBCUs. And I'm just happy to be talking to the wonderful women that we have on this panel. As we get into, first we started talking about careers, and now we're gonna start talking about academic programs. And what does that mean, especially for the next generation of leaders? And why it's important, right? So we see we have the first, African-American, Indian-American woman in the White House, Kamala Harris, as the vice president. But also, we're gonna probably talk a little bit about that, but also talking about how can we prepare our students when it comes to being ready academically. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panel. We have Dr. Melanie Carter from Howard University, representing HU. Also from Howard University through the Ralph Bunche International Affairs Center is Tanya Hope. And then last but certainly not least, we have Giovanni McLaurin from the SIT Study Abroad. So ladies, as we get ready to jump into it, we have a couple of questions. And if you were here for the last panel, we'll start off with our questions. Then we'll take some Q&A from the audience, but please feel free, passion is what we are looking for here. And a little bit of vulnerability if you want to give it up, just a little bit. All right, so our first question, we'll go ahead and start is, the American Council for Education articulates the need for comprehensive internationalization, inclusive of student mobility, faculty research, and the integration of international components. How has your respective institution capitalized on opportunities for enhancing the curriculum to be inclusive of international components? And in that question, you can talk about, what your vision is, but also talking about the challenges that you see towards integrating internationalization into the curriculum at HBCUs. And I would love for Dr. Carter to start first.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be a part of the panel today. And I was able to listen to the earlier panel summit. Again, a very, very impressive program and critically important topic. I'd like to begin by saying I'm glad Tanya Hope Novice is here because she truly is our international expert in terms of the work that she's doing at the Bunche Center and its comprehensive work in terms of making sure that we have an international lens in terms of looking at the university, not only in terms of programs for students. That's just a small aspect, but certainly in terms of making sure that it's fully an international focus or lens is how we gaze at the academic programs we offer and the other kinds of opportunities that are so important for our students, our faculty, staff, and the whole community. And so in terms of thinking about internationalization, I certainly will defer to Tania on some of these issues, but right now, for example, at Howard, we are engaged in general education reform because we know, again, we want to make sure that every Howard student is exposed to the world, right? Not only, certainly we want them to participate in study abroad visits or activities. We have all kinds of opportunities for that to occur, both formal and informal. both through funded opportunities, fellowships and so forth, and other opportunities, but also what does that mean for the curriculum? What kind of academic programs do we have that not just focus on internationalization, but also how is it embedded in our general education program so that every Howard student has an opportunity to think globally instead of regionally or nationally. And so that's exciting. So one of the things that we want to make sure that that's woven throughout the general education requirements. And so as we engage this process, that's a critical component of how we're examining and making sense of general education and what we want every Howard student to know and be able to do. And so, of course, Howard is a comprehensive research university. We have a whole range of programs for undergraduate to graduate professional um, programs. And so there are various ways in which it's already, certainly we have an international focus or theme that weaves throughout our students and our student experiences. And we just want to make sure that we're not only promoting that, but we're affirming that and making sure that there's every opportunity for us to make those opportunities available to our students and our entire community. And then I'll hand off to Tania, who I'm sure can provide an even better perspective.
Should I go?
Yep, sure can. You
Hi.
pass the time.
Hey, that's what
Always having to take the baton from Dr. Carter. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here with two of my favorite ladies. So really excited to be on this panel. And Dr. Carter's point about general education is spot on. I'm very excited that Howard is in the process of reviewing its general ed requirements and taking into account this the need to be more intentional about including internationalization in that process. In terms of other things, I think it's important to point out or acknowledge exactly what internationalization is, what comprehensive internationalization is, because a lot of people think about study abroad only, about student mobility. So study abroad of our students going abroad and international students coming in. But the curriculum is important. The articulation of a mission statement that includes it in materials of the institution is key because it has to start at the top. So it is wonderful that on the two panels before and after us, you have presidents of HBCUs because that is where it has to begin. And so it was very refreshing to hear from the presidents in the previous panel speaking the way that they were about the importance and the value of internationalization for HBCUs, a song I've been singing for at least the last 15 years. So that is key. But also faculty, tenure and promotion. How are we rewarding and encouraging faculty to incorporate internationalization into their courses if they're not going to be rewarded for it when they go up for tenure or promotion, then that is something that needs to be looked at. Through the Bunch Center, we're trying to complement the traditional curriculum, the in-classroom learning, with extracurricular opportunities for our students to engage with practitioners in different sectors like national security sector. But as the presidents were saying earlier as well, every single discipline at this point in the 21st century, every single discipline has an international perspective that can contribute to the success of our students. And we have to make sure that we're not just focusing on students in the languages or in political science, but that we're focusing on the students in engineering and architecture and all of the other disciplines that are not traditionally thought to be international in nature, but absolutely are, because nothing is not international anymore. And I'll just lastly say that at Howard, I have been co-chairing with Ambassador Larry Palmer a committee for the last year looking specifically at how to create a comprehensive internationalization strategy for Howard University. And so we're at the end and preparing our report for the president and the provost, and look forward to moving forward with our recommendations to actually make that happen. Part of it is telling our story better, as others have already said. Howard has been international since the very beginning, as Lindsay mentioned in her opening remarks. We had international students from China 3 years after Howard was founded, but we don't ever tell that story. And so many other HBCUs, I'm sure, have stories that they can be telling, and we have to be intentional about telling them and letting potential students know that if they come to our institutions, this is the history and the legacy that they will have an opportunity to be a part of. But we have to be better about that. I'll stop there.
Yes, Tania, thanks so much. You hit on a lot of some similar points that I was going to mention. And I just want to say that there's so much good information being shared here. And I think I'm in a unique position because with me working for SIT Study Abroad, we are a kind of like an affiliate program. So Tania and Dr. Carter, you all are sending students to us. And so then how are we looking at, the curriculum that they're learning with us? And so there's a large conversation about, education reform within our curriculum. So how are we making sure that we're pulling back some of that Western context that we're providing to our students? If students are studying nursing, for example, not only are you studying, America's perspective of nursing, but you're hearing from authors and contributors and practitioners from India, where we have programs, from Kenya, where we have programs. And just to back up as well, I'm excited to that Dr. Juanita Lewis is the facilitator, because when I was pursuing my master's in international education, I did my practicum looking at international education at HBCUs, and I did my practicum at St. Augustine's University. So I was in St. Aug. I was working on our study abroad and our study abroad, as well as internationalization. So when we were pursuing curriculum reform there, we were making sure, how do we embed these global and international components into the first year experience program? We incorporated the idea of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, so that all students that very first year were being aware of career development and opportunities beyond just the Raleigh-Durham area. And so, yeah, there's a lot of good ways to really work on the curriculum and things like that. So, I mean, I'll stop there because I know there's other questions that we have posed to us, as well as questions from the audience, but that's just, looking at curriculum.
And I'll also say this too, ladies, I want this to be a conversation, not just oh, I have a question, like back and forth, so we'll just go with the ebbs and flows of the conversation. I would also say too, even debunking the myth when it comes to internationalization, because for me, I was a STEM student at St. Aug, and I just found out 5 years ago that we had a study abroad program. Luckily, my study abroad started when I was in high school, and that's just because of my family. But also, I think too, as Tania said, looking at the top-down approach, looking at faculty, rewarding them for bringing in that international experience, but also, making sure the STEM students understand too, right? Because even now, when I talk to students from my alma mater, just from different HBCUs, they're like, well, why do I want to go into policy? Or I want to go into policy, but I don't have that support. And I didn't know about, agricultural policy until maybe my graduate career. And still was very one-sided in my thinking. I thought it was have to be USAID, and I ended up working at the State Department, and had a great experience. So I think too, not only telling the story that we need to tell, but also making sure that faculty need to get out of their box a little bit as well too. Now, because these careers are going to be international, as all of you have mentioned. And so, what can we do to also encourage our faculty to go abroad, like what Howard is doing, and also what, Giovanni just mentioned. So, I'm interested as well to see, what, how are we going to be to, when it comes to the international landscape. So for the next question, unless someone wants to jump in with a comment.
I'll comment, because I do think that I'll comment about the faculty piece, because I think that's important, to say the least. And I, like Tania's comments about how that factors into tenure and promotion and so forth. But I know, for example, I'm a faculty member, of course, and this semester I'm teaching Black women in higher educational leadership. And I developed the course a couple of years ago, and this is the second time I've taught it. But in between the last time I taught it and this semester, I had a Fulbright to South Africa and worked at the University of Free State with some of their student development or student success initiatives. And so, not that I didn't know it was important before, but certainly this year I'm including a component around international education or women in international contexts who lead in higher education. So again, I think that it's very important for faculty to not only certainly look at their courses, but also their own development in terms of thinking globally about their field and their courses and their research, and connecting not only in terms of course topic and content, but also in terms of the research they do and other kinds of work that we do around service, engagement with professional associations, etc. So I think it's an exciting time to do this kind of work. And also right now, because of COVID, everyone is Zooming and everything's virtual, it's much easier to make those connections. If you have those opportunities for people to be panelists in classes or connect with students or do some mentoring, I think the opportunities are there. And so this is a real good opportunity for us during this period, and we can continue those relationships and those efforts. So.
Mhm. Thank you, Dr. Carter. Anyone else want to jump in? Okay. All right. And so, kind of going, following that comment too, when we're talking about, being intentional, how can, what are other ways that HBCUs can take the much needed steps to create that time and intentionality for innovation when we're creating or enhancing these academic programs? So for example, like we have the cultural anthropology, we have the food security, we have climate justice and all these things. And then maybe even talk about, does that mean we need to also maybe leverage the presence of private sector as well, since they may have a global presence, and kind of incorporate that into academic programming?
Well, I think what was being said is the importance of influencing these global components throughout all disciplines. I don't want people to get stuck on thinking, to get into these global careers, I have to just do cultural anthropology or something like that. There's so many other ways. And I think it's all about really making sure that there is global context, no matter what you're doing. Tania might add some comments on this, but the importance of language instruction is something we really harp on. Yes, exactly. So, I mean, there's a lot of curriculums, STEM curriculums especially, that do not have language learning because they are so packed with a lot of technical skills, which are wonderful. But when you're taking those technical skills into a global environment, you got to make sure you still have that competitive edge, and that language is definitely going to help you with that. So I think the intentionality around language study can definitely be put into some of these programs. And then also experiential education. So the experiential learning model is not necessarily just like memorizing code and memorizing theories, but being able to apply everything that you've learned. So, and that's where you see that can be done not necessarily in study abroad alone, but in some other opportunities like internships. We want to make sure that we're producing subject matter experts from these HBCUs, making sure that they can really have the experience around everything they've done in the academic space. So that's where I think the intentionality needs to come on some of these academic programs. And of course, expanding degree programs are great, but there's also ways to work with what already exists within the structure of an institution.
I agree. Anyone else hop in? Tania, you're ready.
I was like, is she going to take the mic?
I just got to do a double shout because of the language thing. I mean, yes, Shivani knows I am like the greatest cheerleader for language learning. And I mean, just personally, the way that the ability to speak other languages has opened up the world for me is it's breathtaking. But really, when you look at what we're trying to do in terms of prepare students for life and career after they graduate, what we want them to be able to do is to build relationships with people, because building relationships with people is really how they are going to succeed and build whatever career, if it's working for someone, or if they are entrepreneurs and trying to, you know, expand into different markets. At the end of the day, it's the relationships that are going to make or break you. And the ability to speak to someone in the language that they grew up speaking is priceless. And when you look at Modern Languages Association's report from 2016, that threw me out was that in that report, there were, in the entire United States, there were only 917 African-American foreign language majors in the entire country, which is devastating to me. And so I think we have a lot of work to do around languages and figuring out how to make it really meaningful, not just, okay, you have to take 4 semesters and by then nobody is learning a language in 4 semesters. I'm sorry, but how are we going as at HBCUs incorporating the language learning in the classroom with international students from those countries who speak those languages? What kinds of opportunities are we providing for them to engage with each other on campus to practice those language skills, both the English for the international student and the other language for our US students? And then also study abroad, obviously. Immersion, that's the best way. And I know that in the previous session, the presidents were talking about leveraging technology, and I do agree with leveraging technology. However, I am scared that the technology will replace the actual travel to another country for students who can't afford to participate and study abroad. So we have to be very careful not to create another kind of classist, elitist activity that only the haves can do, and the have-nots have to take this other, you know, technologically supported study abroad, which yes, is going to be good for some people. But at the end of the day, those relationships are built by being in another place, having those experiences inside, but also outside of the classroom. And we have to be very mindful not to discount those opportunities, and make sure at the end of the day, it is an issue of equity, because the studies do show that having that study abroad experience, the retention rates of students are higher, the graduation rates are higher, the employability rates are higher, they're employed faster and earn more if they've had a study abroad experience. And that's just a fact. And so we have to be very intentional about sharing that information, particularly with HBCU presidents, because that's the data that they care about most. And so how can we do that so that all of our students can have this opportunity to participate in these programs?
And I want to just put on my study abroad hat really quick, a study abroad student, because you make an excellent point about 4 semesters not doing anything. I went to Hampton University as an undergrad. I know people have been telling me to plug my HBCU, so Hampton. And so I studied abroad in even my junior year. And before that, I had taken Spanish from high school through college. And I went and studied abroad in Costa Rica's first semester, came back, and I remember telling someone, I learned more in that Spanish in that study abroad semester than all of my formal education in the United States. So yes, that is very accurate. Language access, I like to tell this anecdote about how it really does play into those connections. So my mother is a nurse. And she's always, using the little bit of Spanish that she has to connect with some of her Spanish patients. And she just always tells me a little bit goes a long way. They know that I'm caring and that I'm trying to connect with them. I served in the Peace Corps in the Philippines. not too many people speak Tagalog or even know what Kinaraya is, another language in the Philippines. But when I hear it, I recognize it and I approach someone and I build that connection, and it just goes a long way with whatever, it could be just a daily interaction, or even if they're, migrating to the United States, it provides a sense of comfort and belonging. So I just wanted to make those few last minute language plugs. And then following up with, yes, all of this internationalization begins with the presidents. Internationalization is, in the academics, in the curriculum, but it's also in the business aspect. So at St. Augustine's, I was running a program for students to Haiti. And, this is the first time that a faculty-led program was being hosted at this institution. So now you have to speak with the registrar. What does study abroad credits and transfers look like? I know this is getting really technical, but it goes into all aspects of the business of the institution, going to the business department and looking how that is, that needs to be things that are communicated, not just in a silo in a study abroad office or an international center.
And I would add that that's why it's so important for integration, because you're right. When we think about students who study abroad or go on fellowships, there is a whole navigation process that has to take place. And so this issue of partnering with other institutions and with other entities is incredibly important, particularly when we think about equity, because as we think about student success or student opportunities and access, it's not only ultimately taking advantage of that opportunity, but also doing the prerequisites necessary for the opportunity. And that's an issue of equity as well. The other point I was going to raise is that this issue of student success, presidents are certainly concerned with all the things that you've talked about, but certainly concerned about retention and degree completion, on-time degree completion. And so if we think about higher ed over the last 10, 15 years in terms of how we compress the undergraduate degree into a very standard set of hours and what that means for the disciplines, I think that was a movement that we had to do, and I think it makes sense. But it also, in terms of I'm the associate professor of undergraduate studies and also a faculty member and have been in various roles. But the fact is that we then have to go back and have conversations about how, for example, language acquisition, what does it look like? How do we integrate that into programs with not adding particular hours? And so this issue of experiential learning is certainly something that we're very committed to in general education. Also, some of the other things that you discussed, because again, we have to find opportunities for this to occur that may not be in what we thought of as a formal academic setting for which a student would earn credit hours. And so it is an opportunity to be innovative, creative, to also challenge us in the disciplines, so that instead of thinking that you have to take, so many specific courses in a discipline, what courses would complement that so that students could pursue careers and opportunities and study and research and be enriched by language ease or acquisition and so forth. And so all those things go hand in hand, and we've got to have some critical conversations that are difficult. General education reform, or thinking about the academic programs and faculty's perceptions about those, are very difficult challenges for universities, but we certainly have to engage if we expect to be prepared, globally minded and globally committed students.
Mhm. And I'll definitely add in too, we're starting to, now we're starting to see that all eyes are on the African American community, right? And HBC on the other side of things, like Ghana, was capitalizing and promoting the year of return. And so students are going to be asking more about, how can I get back to, maybe not Ghana because we're full. we're a little full. We got enough people here.
Wow.
But
okay.
But we I mean, you can come. Just don't stay too long. Don't stay too long.
Okay.
But other countries that are, other countries that are in on the continent. I mean, kudos to you, Dr. Carter, for going to South Africa, right? And having the not so typical stereotypical experience of South Africa. I always say South Africa reminds me of California, right? And so, and so, even thinking about, like he says, we're talking about education reform with academic programming. Of course, the biggest question is, how much is this going to cost us, right? What are the what are the if it doesn't make dollars doesn't make sense. And so, how do you even plan on having, that conversation as well when we're talking about, we've talked about the retention, we've talked about what does it look like for, making sure students get enough experience and not having to alter their hours. Talking about, the faculty and what support do they need. But when it talks to the business aspect, could you all maybe touch on that a little bit as well? Because, just thinking about what other HBCU presidents are doing and what kind of business model are you looking at as you're talking about this education reform?
Okay, so when you say business model, you mean specifically in terms of how are we managing to create programs to support students who engage this way? And so,
Yes.
okay, okay. And so when I think about, I know, for example, in my particular unit that I oversee, which is also undergraduate studies, we have a honors and scholar development that works specifically with students who are seeking prestigious awards and scholarships, including Rhodes and etc., but certainly Fulbright and others. And so I know, having, and I've worked with actually Tania on some of these issues as well. We all know that there is a process. The university has to enter into agreements. There has to be a transfer of funds. I mean, there are all kinds of things in terms of study abroad or students taking advantage of these opportunities. And universities have to be prepared to engage that and have support for that. I always say, for example, for our Rhodes students who interview, and we've had a lot of finalists over the last few years, I've, with the university, of course, and Dr. Miller, who leads that program, we sometimes have to buy a ticket for a student to be somewhere around the world in 24 hours, right? And have to get that student there. And so the universities, it is costly. Okay. Of course, it's an investment that we have to be prepared to make, but we have to make spaces for that to occur. I know at Howard, we have a lot of faculty who lead these international trips, and there are a variety of ways that they can go about doing that. But there has to be in some instances, standardization or some process and policy to make sure that we've accounted for that we have making the proper investments if we want the proper returns and we want our students to have those experiences. So universities have to. That's why this group that Tania and Ambassador Palmer are leading is so important, because those kinds of pieces make the difference between a student being able to actually take in that opportunity or not. And so we have to be international. I'm gonna make up a word right now. I was an English major, so I can do that. We have to be internationalization ready, right? We have to be capable. We have to have the capacity to do that, and not just on a dime. But we have to have a structure in place that allows that, promotes that, and says to students and to all of us in the community that we encourage that, and that's a part of our DNA. That's who we are and who we will continue to be. So in terms of bureaucracy, we have to have the spaces, the structure in place, the systems in place. We have to follow through, and we have to have the capital, money, resources set aside to do that on a consistent basis.
Agreed. It has to be a structure that the leadership prioritizes in every way, in every space, with everything, and demonstrate. I mean, where the priorities lie based on the budget, right? And if there is no budget for internationalization, then we know where it lies in terms of priorities. So that's something that I hope to address at Howard. But in terms of in other ways, I know Howard has one in terms of mobility access. Howard allows students to use their full financial aid package to participate on semester-long study abroad programs. So if they get a Howard institutional scholarship, they can use that money to go on a program provider like with SIT. They can use that money for that. Not a lot of institutions do that, and I hope that Howard continues to do that, because that is addressing issues of equity. But we also have a globalization fee that students requested. I think it's been like 10 years now. Students requested that they be charged a fee, that money would be used towards globalization efforts. Some of that is is bringing people to campus, but a lot of that is providing financial support for them to participate on some study abroad activities. And that money can be used on faculty-led programs, which is where most of our students get their international experience, is on short-term faculty-led programs, which unfortunately the financial aid package does not support those small, shorter trips, but the globalization fee does. And so, but we do need to have a little bit of a restructuring around how to use the globalization fee and make it a little more standard across the university, because right now each school and college has different rules about how that money is used. But it is a line item in the budget of every single school or college that has undergraduate students. And that's something that I think other schools could consider, because we're seeing, I get, and Dr. Carter could probably verify this, but I know from the admissions office tells me that they're like, we need more information on study abroad, because increasingly at fairs, students are specifically asking what kind of study abroad opportunities are available at Howard. And that's not something that they saw several years ago. And every year it gets more and more. So we have to be prepared for the students. If we want students to continue to come to our institutions, we have to go with the times. And the times are saying that our younger students, they're connected to everybody in the world on social media. There are no barriers anymore. So you can't have them come to your school and expect them to now have barriers put in because we are not providing these opportunities for them. We have to the world has to be available to them, and we have to make that possible.
Giovanni, any
Oh,
thoughts
agreed. Praise
to the
Tania. You
question, or-
said it all. I mean, yes, that was it.
You know.
All right. We only have a few minutes left. So we have one question. Well, we have a couple questions. So we might just go, we want to make sure that we're going to be on time, and we want to be respecting everyone's time, especially for the next panel. So this, ladies, thank you so much. I would also like to just commend you all for keeping yourselves up to date as well. You know, Tania, you talked about the importance of language and learning how to speak several different languages so that you'll be able to move into these global spaces. Dr. Carter, your experience in South Africa, I'm sure, has opened your eyes, and hopefully you were able to experience going to a Shishinyama while you were there. I call it the Black People Kickback. So that you'll be able to have a story and to be able to relate to your students. And then Giovanni, you saw the importance and saw the gap that was there at St. Augustine's University. I actually had heard of your program to Haiti and wish I was a little bit younger so I could have came. You know, but also seeing those gaps and being able to address it by being able to work with the faculty and have it be faculty led. So there was someone who also saw the light bulb as well and decided to walk towards the light and wanted to offer this towards their students. So since we have a few really little, maybe 3 minutes, each of you, I would love for you to discuss any final thoughts that you have to conclude this panel. I know we had a couple of questions from Q&A. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get to those, but please feel free to email the WCAPS HBCU connection email, and I'm sure Shambalia will direct your questions to the panelists, and then we'll be able to continue that conversation. So final thoughts, I'll go ahead and pick someone. We'll start with Giovanni.
Okay, final thoughts. I think, and one of the presidents said this, and I think we need to continue to articulate this, is we tell our own stories. So when we are looking to expand, when we're looking to develop partnerships, when it comes to global education, we are our best champions. You know, we know our history, and we have to be able to articulate that to folks around the world, even outside of the United States, and recognizing the value that our institutions hold. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, yeah, that's it, is just making sure we're telling our stories and that we are on the forefront of global education and the work that we want to see done.
Dr. Carter, Tania, you guys can flip a coin if you want.
Dr. Carter.
Okay, sure. I would just say that this, again, it's a wonderful time for this conversation. It is so appropriate given, the need for us to be more conscientious about the world in which we, take up space. And so this is very, very encouraging. And always want to think about opportunities for students to engage and for our communities to be connected worldwide. And so this is a great opportunity. Also a shout out, I did do my master's at Clark Atlanta University. So just an HBCU shout out, I guess we're asked to do. All right. And I'll go to Dania because I see a picture of her grandfather, right, who was president of Atlanta University, John Hope, right? All right. Okay.
Yeah, my great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather, sorry, not great-grandfather, yes.
Wow, there's so much to say. I don't know. I am just hopeful that that HBCUs will meet the call. Like I said, I've been working on this since before I worked at Howard, and the evolution has been wonderful, but there's still so much work to do. And I think we have to do work internally as well as externally. I think that we have to be mindful of, for example, issues of xenophobia on our campuses. We have international students that come to our campuses, and we can't be quiet about the fact that there are people who look like us who think that international students shouldn't be there. So we have to be very intentional in all ways about being welcoming to students and faculty from all over the world, because the richness that they bring to our campuses is priceless. And we have to make access available for our students, for them to be able to get out into the world. We have to be mindful of the curriculum and the topics that we incorporate into the classroom, and provide opportunities for extracurricular activities for our students to engage with the world and see who's around. And we're in Washington, D.C., so we're fortunate. We have it around us all the time. But just because you're not in a Washington, D.C. doesn't mean that the world has not come to your doorstep. You should explore ways to find and engage with the world in your community, because they are there. The world has come to every corner of this country, and there are ways to, especially in this time of no mobility, there are ways to engage with the world, around the corner. What is that restaurant around the corner? What is that church that caters to that particular immigrant population? There are ways to do it. And I think we just need to be a little bit more creative about it, and just very, very intentional. And then you have to tell the world. Because while you're doing all of this, you have to have a communication strategy to make sure that the world knows, because if you don't tell anybody, it never happened.
That's so true.
That's absolutely correct. My sister says it all the time. She's like, if you don't have a picture of it, it didn't exist. You're like, what? That's the world we live in. And, and how we also communicate and connect with people is through food, right? And so I can definitely attest to, as being an HBCU alumni twice, the foundation that I learned and the support that I have is really what I was looking for when I made this move to Ghana a year ago. And, just being appreciative of the things that I learned at my HBCU. But again, I am also hopeful as well, as Tania stated, that we have no choice. We have to be on the forefront. We're going to either be in the front, or we're going to be left behind. And if we're left behind, we're going to be extinct. So I'm so grateful to have moderated a panel with these three wonderful women who are doing exceptional work throughout the US, especially in the DC area for Howard. And I can't wait to see what the three of you will be doing. I know you all will be working not against each other, but working alongside. And so if there's any other questions, please feel free to email the WCAPS HBCU Connection email address that Shambali has dropped in the chat. And let's give our panelists a wonderful round of applause. Silently. All right. This concludes the panel for this evening that was on academic programs, and we will turn this back over to Shambalia to close us out for the last portion of the program. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Juanita for coming in all the way from Ghana, West Africa to moderate this panel for us. I don't know about y'all, but my notebook is completely filled up with notes from the past two panels. This is just so phenomenal. I didn't, I always have high expectations for our HBCUs because I know we always supersede them. And these past two panels have done just that. And I am so excited about our next panel as they begin to log in. We'll give everyone a quick minute to come on board to get this next panel started. But the next panel that's coming up is entitled Programs Connecting Global Opportunities to the HBCU Community. Oh, there we go. Everyone is in the building. Yay. So the phenomenal woman that is moderating this panel today is Crystal James, Esquire, who is an alumna of Clark Atlanta University. She is a member of the WCAPS board, and she is also the associate professor as well as the special assistant to the president for COVID-19 recovery at Tuskegee University. This sister is so phenomenal, oh, so phenomenal. With that being said, I just want to take this one point of privilege because if I don't, my little sister is going to get on me. But because this panel is specifically focused on programs, my little sister, Shingarai Gaston Sams, is a 2012 alumna of Benedict College, where she had the amazing opportunity through one of Benedict's programs to study abroad in China. Not only did she go to China and study abroad, she actually, Benedict actually supported her in staying there a little bit longer, and she became a teacher in China as well. And so she is just one representative of an amazing HBCU. And the reason why I highlighted that is because Benedict is like a lot of our HBCUs that are small private institutions that sometimes do not receive the exposure to bring awareness to some of the phenomenal programs that are happening at all of our institutions. And I am truly excited for this panel. Crystal is about to have an amazing time with these phenomenal representatives from Houston-Tillotson, as well as University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. And I'm going to turn it over to Crystal to introduce the panelists and to get us started.
Well, I hope you have another notebook because I am sure you're going to get a lot of great information from the panelists we have lined up for you this afternoon. We've talked about getting to careers and enhancing educational opportunities. We must develop and maintain programs that are beyond just study abroad, in which the last panel emphasized. So it is my pleasure this afternoon to moderate this session focused on programs that connect global opportunities to the HBCU communities. We have the dynamic leaders that are discussing these topics with you this afternoon. We have Dr. Artis, who's the president and CEO of Benedict College, who has the distinction of being the first woman president of 2 HBCUs, including her current post. We share in common a doctor of jurisprudence and degree. And so I'd like to welcome Sora Artis to our panel. We also have with us Dr. Burnett. She's president and CEO of Houston-Tillotson University. She comes from a STEM background and has navigated her career in the academy while also making time for entrepreneurship, owning and running CompuNet and computer consulting firm. Welcome, Sora Burnett. Dr. Kosa the academic administrator for the Center of International Education, as well as associate professor in the Department of Human Ecology. Her research interests have been in globalization, impact on Africa's textile and apparel industries, cultural meaning and symbolism in traditional dress, fashion's effect on traditional dress, and cross-cultural learning styles. And so just from those backgrounds, and I promise you I didn't stalk you all, you have a lot of information out there because of all the great work you've done. And I want to just share a little bit of that as we begin our panel this afternoon. It is so important. Well, the first question I have for you is, from your perspective at your institutions, is it important to, and what are the keys to building and sustaining programs with international academic institutions, as well as business organizations? And I'll start with Dr. Artis.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for including Benedict College in this important conversation. The short answer is critically important. In addition to supporting our students as they study abroad and welcoming students from the global community onto our campus, it's important that we actually have robust relationships, other institutions in foreign countries that can facilitate meaningful learning experiences. This is not about tourism. This is not about just seeing the terrain, the landscape, the people, and eating the food, right? This is about truly immersing yourself in cultures, socio-political, economic discussions, et cetera, and finding ways to build bridges so that we can find common solutions to complex global problems. And you can only do that through meaningful intellectual partnerships with institutions. And certainly the corporate community has a role to play here too. International business and that sector, incredibly robust. And of course, they have the capital that's necessary to attract to our small institutions to facilitate these relationships. I am 100% certain that the answer to the globe's problems probably are sitting on one of these 3 HBCU campuses. And the only way we're going to find it is to engage partnerships.
Thank you for that response. Dr. Burnett, you would like to go next?
I was going to add to what my sister Soror, Madam President, was saying. Students need opportunities. And we would do them a disservice not to expose them to things outside of their world. Even here in Texas, Texans think this is a country. So just even to get out of Texas sometimes is a challenge. But once you expose young people to the fact that the world is really big, and we would do them a disservice not to put them in those spaces so that they can learn and absorb and so that people can learn from them. Because as we see now, the world is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And if we don't build good citizens that have this global knowledge or this global intellect, then they're not going to be able to excel in their own space. And even for in my own personal life, until I traveled internationally, I really didn't understand what being an American meant. And that we are not the United States of the world. We're a small, small piece of the pie. And unless you travel internationally, you really don't have an understanding of that. You think that we are this global superpower without any respect for other cultures, other nations, other religions, et cetera. So when you get exposed to that internationalism, I think you become a better person, a better human.
Thank you. I actually spent some time in Houston in law school, and you're right. Texans believe Texans is the entire universe. Dr. Kosai, what would you like to add to that? How would you respond to that question? I'm sorry.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm glad to be here and to be amongst these wonderful ladies. The previous 2 panels have shared some very critical information that we do need as we go through this process. And I'm pleased to represent my alumni, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, in this session, in that we do have a diverse faculty, which I think is very key as we promote internationalization. We have a number of international students, and for our students to mingle with domestic students to mingle with international students shows how important it is to be aware of what's going on beyond your world. Our previous speaker, Ms. Navas, shared about going beyond your doorstep to learn more about your world, which is right in front of our doorsteps. And as we know, dealing with this pandemic has, in a way, brought us even closer with the way we communicate with other individuals. So what we are doing at Eastern Shore is ensuring that we do partner with those institutions that do complement our mission. I'm sure that is evident in a lot of missions across this country with the institutions where they want to have globally competent citizens. So we are here to make sure that we are partnering with institutions that are like-minded and encouraging our students to go above and beyond. Likewise, partnering with international business organizations. The Eastern Shore is relatively far from Washington, DC. It's about a 2-hour drive, and we're literally 30 minutes from the ocean, which is a good thing. However, it can be challenging for those students that come from the bigger cities to come to a so-called rural environment to get an education. But it's important to know that whatever is out there, we are here to represent it and bring it onto our campus so we can share it with our students. And building those sustaining relationships are important as well, in that, for instance, I participated in the Carnegie African Diaspora Fellowship Program, where I was at University of Pretoria dealing with curriculum matters. So what I learned there, I've brought back, and my faculty hat, I teach as we address sustainability in the fashion industry. So I think just having those relationships, growing them, promoting them, and having our students participate in things like presentations when they've been abroad to share their experiences with their peers and others, it makes a difference. And to me, that's heartwarming to know that what they've gone abroad for is very relatively important to their lives.
Thank you. I'd like to ask next, how many of you actually have programs where you bring faculty from other countries and to bring some of that diversity to a wider swath of your students by having faculty that come and spend a semester or even a year, even longer time to either do basic research or just to engage with students?
We participate in the Fulbright program. So since I've been here, I'm in my 6th year right now, with the exception of this past year for obvious reasons. We have been able to have 1 or 2 scholars or Fulbright scholars exchange every year. And they've been from a diverse area, Asia. We had faculty there, they don't all come from the same community. And it's really a pleasure to see them at commencement. Like personally, we all live for commencement. I mean, if you're out of gas, by the time you get to commencement, you get refueled because it affirms your why. And I've just really enjoyed see them in commencement with their cameras, just capturing every single moment. Because as you know, at an HBCU, the pomp and circumstance that goes around the celebration, we graduate families, not individuals, and they become a part of that. And I think that helps them to understand the African-American community even more. So just what's happens in the classroom, what students learn from them, but I've seen them really expand and grow and want to extend. We've had a couple that wanted to extend. So we've had a very positive experience with that. And then we also have a very diverse faculty as well, but we do participate in the Fulbright Exchange program.
Ditto. Benedict has not been as robust a participant Florida Memorial was, as you might imagine, in Miami, bit of a gateway. And so lots of Asian in particular, and here South America seems to be the most prevalent in Columbia in terms of connectivity. We also have an incredibly diverse faculty, and it's not just in the STEM disciplines. We are seeing it in the humanities and other areas. So that's been an exciting development of late.
We have had faculty visit our campus, mainly in our agricultural and natural sciences school. They have popped into our office, and what we try to do is when we know they're coming, have the flag representing outside on our office building and on our mall as well as our most recent Fulbright visitor was from Egypt. So she was teaching Arabic in our modern languages department, and we invited her in our center to share her experiences as part of a panel, as well as different experiences. So the students are more aware of what the media feeds and what the students get. Sometimes it's not always positive. So we had the panelists to address challenges, for instance, of your experiences when you first came to the US, and how does that reflect in what you're experiencing now? I know that when I first came from the Kingdom of Eswatini, one of my experiences was falling in the snow. It didn't snow where I came from. However, I shared that experience with others for them to relate to the challenges we face as individuals coming from outside. But our international scholars do really enrich our campuses in different ways.
What are some of the challenges to creating these type of programmatic opportunities on campuses for international exchange for students as well as faculty?
So there are some practical challenges that we experienced. Certainly security, the political conversation and the narrative that's been circulating in the recent administration has caused us tremendous challenges. And on a very, very, practical and almost trite level, food causes us tremendous problems on our campus, even with our visiting scholars. Everybody, listen, I experienced an intra-national experience when I came to South Carolina from Miami. Everybody can't eat pork chops every day and not have their blood pressure shoot up. I mean, we do everything with rice and gravy in South Carolina. I came from conch salad to smothered pork chops. And so if you're from Asia, this is a difficult transition. And so I say it with some level of levity, but it's a very real concern, very much as we experience with our international students. Part of being comfortable, right, is some part adaptation, but some part sharing your culture and having everyone experience that exchange. And so as we welcome visiting scholars, as we attempt to diversify this kind of global learning environment, we have to consider safety, security, politics, language, and diet.
That's an interesting concept. I all the ones you mentioned, I pretty much had heard before, but food, I can imagine that is a huge challenge coming from having spent a little time in Egypt, but where, it's either chicken or meat, and they don't necessarily describe what that meat is. It's just like, what is it? So that is a very interesting point. Thank you. Anyone else?
I was just going to say, Dr. Artis just really struck a nerve with me of something I had suppressed and forgot, because we had a major challenge with a kosher menu and no pork, because we do a lot of bacon, we do a lot of, pork chops. And it actually made us do this international menu programming, where we highlighted every country that our international students were from and had a menu for them, because one of the students was just a delightful young man. I believe he was from Togo. I believe he was from maybe West Africa. I don't remember. But he only ate rice. Every time I saw him, he had a big bowl of rice. And he told me, I can't find anything on here that I like. So we sat down with our food service provider, and it stretched us, and it also stretched the palate of our students, because they tend to focus in just on one set menu, and I like these one thing, Chicken Wednesday and Fish Friday and everything else in between. So it stretched our students, and we then ended up doing a station that we would have some kind of international something. And I had totally forgot about that, because that was just one of those hills that you climb and you conquer and you keep moving beyond it. But that was a challenge. And another thing I want to point out, what we did see under this last administration is how policies can be so detrimental. And if it weren't for the well-resourced institution like Harvard, MIT, that could take these policies on in a legal situation and to defeat them, we would have really been decimated when it comes to international exchange programs, because of the policies, from changing the definition with the H-1Bs to banning travel from Muslim countries, to the whole online. If a student was fully online, international student, they couldn't stay. So we really need to pay attention to policy setting. And I don't think that's something that we really have in our mind when it comes to how it impacts our international populations.
Oh, there's Dr. Coase. I thought we had lost you for a second. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, sorry about that. Spotty internet. I concur with the previous speakers. We don't have much mobility inbound. So we deal with what comes as things go, and what Dr. Burnett raised in terms of recent policies has been very challenging for our students. You get those nervous emails. Can I stay? Am I safe? All those kinds of things have been addressed. And I think most people are relieved with the policies that will change going forward as it impacts our international students. And on the topic of food, we started something called a Taste of UMES on our campus. This was mainly for our faculty.
I'm sorry, Dr. Costa, you're breaking up. We're not able to understand you anymore. I think she's frozen at this point. I'll move on to the next question. Hopefully she can reconnect with us here in a moment. But what success have you had working with the ministries of health and different ministries of other countries to help support your programming for exchange with students and our faculty?
I don't have any experience dealing with the Ministry of Health, but the obvious connection is the Ministry of Education. So the Bahamas in particular has been incredibly aggressive in terms of building a pipeline between HBCUs in particular and Bahamian high school students. Many have gone to Canada. There's a tremendous pipeline to Canada. And so they were really excited to find an alternative opportunity to engage with HBCUs, which might be a more welcoming culture for these students in the Bahamas to the United States. And so the Ministry of Education in many, particularly Caribbean countries, have been wonderful partners in providing some education subsidy. Of course, much of that dried up. The Bahamas in particular has been hit by, as you might imagine, national disaster as well as COVID-19. I mean, they had a weather emergency just prior to that. And so some of that funding has not been as readily available, but they certainly remain strong partners of ours in terms of creating pipelines into our institutions.
And we've been very fortunate that our director of our international program, he's a retired dean of the School of Business Technology, and he has built some tremendous relationships with some of the ministries in different places that he had even just just in his personal life. And we've been really fortunate to create some very strong pipelines. And the city of Austin has we're in Austin, Texas, and the city of Austin has a partnership with the Pakistanians, and we participate through the U.S. Department of State, their exchange program. And that has been really good. We had planned to do a true exchange where we've had 2 of their students here on our campus, and we were going to send 2 of our students to the sister institution, but then COVID-19 happened, so that put us behind. But that has been a very rock solid relationship, and even into our entrepreneur program, because they wanted to extract some of the knowledge. So it's an exchange of knowledge as well as a student exchange, and that has just been very fruitful for us. I wanted to add something about when we think about international students. One thing that I've experienced here in Austin, in Texas, is the threat against our DACA students, or our students who are children of immigrants. And that has been really very eye-opening from me, coming from Ohio, how ICE can come on your campus to be asking questions. And that's something that we've learned now how to address that. But when it first happened, it really caught us off guard, because we really need to be a safe space for our students for many reasons. And the campus had to really think through our securities that we have in place to be able to protect those students from whatever the forces may be. And I think we often lose them when we talk about international students, or we talk about internationalization, is those students that are in those populations.
Understood. Dr. Kosa, welcome back.
Yeah, I'm trying to log on in a different space, but I'm sorry, I missed the question for this.
We were talking about the using the ministries of health or Ministry of Education as a conduit for building programs for student exchange or faculty exchange.
Okay, so at this moment, I am working with a colleague from our Department of Modern Languages to undergo a proposal to participate with the university in Mexico, specifically with our marine sciences faculty. So it's a work in progress to encourage our students to visit the lesser known destinations. So many times students want to go to England and Spain, and so our push is to encourage visiting the lesser known destinations. So that's one way we are striving to develop these grant work to build those relationships.
I know that we all had to pivot in last March with COVID-19. How did that actually impact your international students? Many of which I know at Tuskegee could not just go home. And so we had to come up with alternate programming for them and house them. How were you able, what kind of programs were you had to create due to COVID when we all transitioned last spring?
I think the biggest challenge at Benedict, and we actually subsidized travel. I bought international plane tickets and facilitated students going home. But the challenge once they got home is, again, they were in countries that were equally battered by COVID-19, if not more so. And so when the CARES Act dollars were released and expressly excluded those students from receiving those much needed dollars, we really had to leverage our private philanthropic contacts to try to raise additional money to support and sustain those students. So when we did the distribution of CARES Act dollars, we heard from a lot of international students that said, what about us? We were impacted in the same way that your domestic students were, in fact, more so, given the nature of the condition of some of our countries. Certainly some did very well, but others were from countries that really were hit hard and didn't have the resources. And so saying to the sort of trite arguments around, well, these are taxpayer dollars to be domestically invested was an affront to students who come here and work hard and engage and are part of the fabric of our intellectual community. And so we raised some private money to support and assist those students with food subsidies, laptops, and for some travel back here now that we're back open and they're welcome back on the campus.
So ditto, the same thing. The only thing I can add is our incoming freshmen. We had incoming freshmen that participated in one of our summer programs. And so she still is, she's Nigerian. And it's actually been a delight to see her at the wee hours of the morning, working with her classmates on different projects. And it really shows the power of that we're more alike than we are different. Because this one particular case, they did a project on Flint water, and she was sharing some of the same challenges that are in her own home country. So and her mom was standing behind her and actually watching her in this class. So it gave me a warm, fuzzy presidential feeling. And this is why we do what we do, but she's unable to come. So when she does return, when she comes, she's gonna be a sophomore. And she's a scholar. She's going to be a sophomore, but she's going to have that immersion as though she's a freshman. So we'll have to, really have some special programming around our international students that were unable to come to campus as freshmen this year, because we're fully online. So we had no ground courses.
I wanted to pop to a question that was in the Q&A because I think it's relevant for this group. It says one of the prime challenges faced in linking the HBCU world to African university and the institutional world in the international world is the lack of strong and consistent funding on both sides. What has each of your universities done or plans to do to leverage your resources and opportunities to address this gap? Dr. Ardishan,
Sorry, I think COVID-19 is both a blessing and a curse. Certainly the death and destruction and economic toll it has taken, arguably a catastrophic challenge, but it certainly has caused us to become more innovative. And so through the use of technology and staying connected in a deeper, broader fashion, when we think about team teaching courses globally, so as we think about sharing of research, open science, and those kinds of things, forcing us, HBCUs who had historically probably found their comfort zone in a face-to-face teaching environment that were forced to go beyond their comfort zone into an online space, has also now opened up the opportunity for us to enter into the intellectual free enterprise space where we can connect and collaborate with institutions abroad and bring those experiences to our students. I serve on the board for global and international education and have worked extensively with CIEE in terms of facilitating these relationships. Lots of creative ideas right now about how we create an international experience in the wake of COVID-19. And I think the opportunities are virtually endless for us.
There's not much to add to what Dr. Artis said, but just to amplify that the one thing COVID has shown us is that we can be agile. We are not an online institution, but within 2 weeks we had to make that hard right turn, and it showed us how vulnerable we all are, and even the collective of how the virus is global pandemic, and we're not isolated from anything. And I think that has been a lesson I think we need to move forward. All of our institutions will be stronger institutions on the other side of this, particularly HBCUs. I don't like the word resilience because at some point resilience becomes abusive because we're always having to be resilient. So I'm having a love-hate relationship with the word resilience. But once again, when people are forecasting institutions won't make it, particularly small privates, I do not believe that's true for HBCUs at all, because we've operated in these moments where we've had to adjust and fill those gaps, what the question is driving at. And we learn a lot in that. And then that resilience is what makes you stronger and to bounce forward. So I think this has been a phenomenal learning experience for us, and lessons learned, and continue to move forward and make us better institutions.
Dr. Koza, did you want to add to that? I think she's froze again. Sorry. Do you have you, in your experience, do you have a lot of demand from faculty to have those types of experiences internationally, or is it something that you have to try to incentivize?
We have, our faculty is very forward thinking when it comes to that. And I think that speaks to the diversity of the faculty. We have a new MBA program that we just graduated our first cohort. We're in our second cohort right now. And one of the tenets of that program is global studies. So that is a requirement of the program. It's built into the cost of the program. And that resonated from the faculty, that we wanted to have some practical experience of what they learn in the classroom to actually go to the host country. We were going to go to China, but then things went belly up. So that didn't happen for that class. And they were actually very accommodating, but disappointed, because they were looking to that part of their learning experience as MBA students. And we have several exchanges with some of the other universities here in Texas to talk about different addressing global problems. We are really into environmental justice, and our international students remind us that environmental justice is not just here in the United States. We have to think about the global impact of, global warming, et cetera. So I have never felt any resistance from the faculty when it comes to leaning into, and we actually have it in our mission/vision statement, that we want to create global citizens, readying them for the global world. So that feeds itself into the curriculum and everything we do as a campus. We don't always do it well, but we are committed to that.
So you need to call me. Our MBA program is also in its second cohort, just graduated our first class. Listen, we can do some exchange. We might have an opportunity here. You probably are a little bit ahead of us in terms of embedding that in your MBA program. Kudos to you and to Houston Tillotson for that. Our faculty are equally excited, although we did not take that step. I like that. We have a handful that are what I call uber passionate, right? For every, that is their thing. They really want to embed global learning at every turn in the curriculum. And then there are others that I characterize as passively curious. I think I could embrace that. And as we have watched the sort of, incivility and the lack of global understanding really play out over the last 6 months to a year, I think it has really stimulated some complex conversations around the campus and a renewed desire to learn more about our international partners and friends. When you think about us leaving the, Paris Accord, what did that mean? And so we're seeing those conversations taking shape on the campus now that, Biden is moving us back in. Okay, well, what does that mean to us? And so I see faculty getting excited about engaging with students in those conversations and really making it real to them and helping them understand that we play a significant role on the global stage, and we need well-trained, thoughtful, critical thinking participants in that process.
Wonderful. Dr. Kosa, did you hear the question? Okay, we were talking about the whether or not it was a lot of interest displayed by faculty to engage in international exchange, or was it something that had to be incentivized? You're muted currently.
Try this. Okay, so we do have a lot of faculty that are interested in global education. And I think the nature of our campus, as I said, is quite diverse, with the similar diverse number of students, in that faculty are very keen to share what they know, bring their expertise in by taking students abroad. This last year, we had students travel to Italy over spring break through a fine arts class. And it was a complement of students from different disciplines, and it was students learning different things about themselves being in Italy. The assumption that spaghetti has to taste a certain way. They had a cooking experience and they were told it has to be al dente, and they were saying no. And so they were learning a lot of things about themselves ordinarily that they would not have addressed while in the US. So we do have those faculty that are keen to even use their research. There's a faculty member in chemistry who looks at, there's a certain type of berry and whatever it has to help with the health of individuals. She wants to take them to Eastern Europe at some point. She's originally from Russia, but having those connections and that expertise is very important. And it becomes, I think, a domino effect. We're a relatively small campus, which enables me to actually know all the deans and chairs by name, to be able to say, these are the kinds of things that I believe are important for our students and our faculty to also build on. Somebody mentioned earlier, promotion and tenure, which is a very big thing when you're in tenure track. So having this professional development experience abroad and bringing it back and sharing with others is very key. So there hasn't been much resistance, if you will. We do partner with organizations such as CIEE, IIE, and ISA, and so on. And so they do have those professional development opportunities to encourage our faculty to become more than, go beyond that doorstep. Just a couple of weeks ago at our Faculty Institute, I partnered with a colleague in our School of Pharmacy, and we're talking about traveling innovatively and safely in a pandemic era, so as to prepare them to know that those resources are out there in terms of knowing how to travel safely. For instance, if you do want to participate in a faculty-led activity down the line.
Okay, and our final, I'd like to offer the opportunity for you to highlight any particular program that you may have on your campus that we have not already brought up, or just your final thoughts on growing or promoting more opportunities for global connections on your campus.
First of all, I want to really, what highlights conversations and elevates people is organizations such as yours. Even the title, Women of Color, Advancing Peace and Security. Did I say that right?
Yeah. Yes.
I just want to commend you as a final thought, because the more we elevate our voices and are able to tell our stories to our larger audiences, we start to dispel some of the myths about our schools and the power of what we do with the resources that we have. I mean, we're known to do that, and it's blowing the trumpet as opposed to playing the violin. So thank you for that opportunity. The one program that I would lift, and I'm very excited about for a lot of reasons, is that we have partnered with CIEE, Council of International Educational Exchange, right? CIEE, to offer students at no charge to them. The first wave we did at no charge to the students, passports, because that's the first step to global travel, is to get a passport. Like, just like you get a driver's license, you got to get a passport, so that when that opportunity avails itself for you to travel internationally, that's a barrier you don't have. So we did it the first round through the grant, the funding, the partnership, and then we did it the second round where it was a minimal cost to the students, and the university covered the cost for some of our scholars in particular as an incentive. And we're going to expand that program and keep going, because when you get that passport, it empowers you. It's like almost like you earn your driver's license, so you feel a little more comfortable to drive. So when you have that passport, it's kind of a statement to you that you can be empowered to travel outside of the boundaries of your home country. And that's an encouragement to students. And students really felt proud when they got that passport back. It feels official, if you will, like your credentials. So I'm very proud of that program here on campus.
So I would echo my sister president. We are also part of the CIE partnership, and the Passport Caravan has been on our campus several times, actually, and they do about 50 free passports each time they visit. We also have participated in the Frederick Douglass Fellowship Program. We had our first Frederick Douglass Fellow last year. He was scheduled to go to South Africa, and then COVID happened. So he was very disappointed about that. But as part of that Frederick Douglass program, students who apply and are eligible but are not selected are given a $1,500 stipend from CIEE, which we agreed to match. So we gave $1,500 to every student who applied and was eligible, and we had 41 students study abroad the year prior to COVID. So the hope is, in fact, CIEE sent me an email the other day asking, am I going to double down and match those dollars again this year? And the answer is yes. We believe it's incredibly important for our students to have these study abroad experiences. And as we think about deepening and broadening the extent to which faculty are engaged, and we have university to university exchanges, seeing our students lead the way really, I think, sets the tone for what we're doing at Benedict College. So we're pretty excited about some of those partnerships.
Wonderful. Dr. Cousin?
Yes. Well, Dr. Burnett and Dr. Ardis, we also participated in the CIEE Passport Caravan, and the Italy program I talked about, we actually had 2 students that used those passports to travel abroad. And I don't know if anybody in this session is aware, IIE is doing something similar again for this coming year, but you have to be a member for IIE. But the passport drives have been very, very educational for our students. Every semester they are coming to our office to find out if we're giving away passports. So this IIE initiative is coming up. It would be great. And I think other institutions have also done this, where they partner with the local passport agency and they provide matching funds. So that's a great opportunity. And we also had Frederick Douglass scholars who were supposed to travel last year, and we'll see, hopefully they'll be able to go this summer. So we'll push that initiative again. And one program that I'm proud that we have had in the past has been service learning. We were traveling to the Dominican Republic in the winter session, and our students were participating in various activities and supporting the, there's like an agricultural school in the north part of Dominica. So I joined them about a year ago, and we traveled to that location, and we're working mainly in environmental areas, addressing replanting of seedlings, helping the local community with different types of experiences that our students had. At the end of it all, our students were able to capture what they learned there and take it back to the institution. And we have this kind of like a symposia at the end of the semester where they share their experiences. So someone was looking at the water quality, somebody was looking at how they were amazed how many cigarette butts they found around just walking. So there were different experiences that the students had at the destination that they brought back and shared. One of our students was a hotel tourism management major, and she actually prepared a meal with the local ladies that we all partook in at the end of that session. So even though she didn't speak Spanish, they were able to talk the language of food in terms of saying, no, you need a little bit more salt, and no, you do need an egg, and things of that nature. So that was very informative. And I think our students really blossom once they've been abroad. My first student, when I got into this office, her first experience was in Brazil. And whenever I asked her to share with her peers the experiences, she always talked about, take your hair product with you to Brazil. It doesn't matter what they tell you, because she said she had an experience. She went to get her hair done. They promised her to be beautiful. She said it was beautiful in front of the mirror. The minute she stepped out the door, poof, she had an afro. So to her, that was a little traumatizing. So one of her key things was, when she talks to her female peers, is make sure you take your product. Some of these things we may not talk about in pre-orientation, but they're very important to students when they get on the ground. And I think my fellow esteemed panelists have shared a lot of valuable nuggets in terms of these experiences and how they're relative to us as faculty, our students, the curriculum, and molding these global citizens for our future. And I'd like just to state that big quote that Mandela said about education being one of the most powerful weapons you can change the world. And once the students have that, they can go anywhere. So it's a big deal, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Can I add one note? Just a public service announcement. So the Forum Conference for Higher Education Abroad, the annual conference for the Forum of Study Abroad, is offering a discount code to all HBCU faculty and staff who would like to participate in the conference. It's actually scheduled for the first part of March. The Forum's website is clear, but it's a $99 discount code, which is a typically $599 registration. So the goal, again, is to encourage HBCU faculty and staff and students to begin to get engaged in the study abroad process. So I would urge you to take a look at the Forum for Study Abroad annual conference is coming up in March, and share with your faculty, staff, and colleagues that they are offering a significant promotion code for people connected to HBCUs.
Well, ladies, I like, as one of the founding board members of WCAPS, I'd like to just thank you so much for your time and your wisdom today. I know we all have learned much, and we hope that you will continue to be involved with us. We are, I know that HBCU Connection will continue to have some stimulating conversations such as these. And if there's any things that we can do to help on your campuses, please feel free to call on us. And with that, I'll wrap up and throw it back to Shambula. I think that's my time.
Thank you all so much. Like oh my gosh, the pearls that you all just dropped was just so amazing. I'm just overwhelmed just to hear how we how we are in the HBCU community with engaging with inside this space and really stretching and broadening our HBCU students, just their minds and their access to seeing how much they can be involved in when it comes to their education. And I am just more thankful to all of you for, being innovative with inside your degree programs, just being innovative in regards to bringing these opportunities to our students who, just like one of the previous panelists said, sometimes have never even traveled outside of their state. But now they're seeing through attending HBCUs that they have the opportunity to go further in life, to go to different countries and things of that sort. So I truly thank you, Dr. Colette, Dr. Artis, and Dr. Kuzo for joining us today. And I'm telling you, all this information, I am just so excited just to, once we conclude, to be able to post this recording so everyone can see, because believe you me, yeah, my hand can't write that fast, but my notebook is full. It is full, and I thank you all so much. With that being said, we are about to move over to our fireside chat with myself and Ambassador Bonnie Jenkins and our super duper amazing moderator, Lindsay Whitehead, who is a PhD candidate at Howard University.
Thank you, Shambalia. Like you, I have also been taking notes all day and my cup runneth over, okay? There are just so many gems. And I am just so incredibly thankful for just all of the people who were able to share their insights and their wisdom about international things at HBCUs. I mean, everything from corporate partnerships, maximizing technology, thinking about how internationalization increases graduation and retention rates. I mean, the list literally just goes on and on and on. And so, with that being said, we are kind of getting to the end of our session and event for today, but wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to tell you a little bit more about WCAPS, and then also to kind of just conclude the conversation around internationalization. So, one of my first questions is, Michelle Obama always says, when you have worked hard, done well, walk through that doorway of opportunity, you don't want to slam that door behind you. You want to reach back. You want to make sure that you are giving other folks that same chance that help you succeed. We all know that it takes a village, right? Our village, our homegirls, our advocates, our sponsors, all of our network. And so, my question to you is, why is that network important at the institutional level, and why is it important at the individual level? So I will start by asking that to Ambassador Jenkins.
Thank you, Lindsay. And first of all, I want to say thank you to our amazing panelists and to our moderators. This was such a great event today, and I have also been taking notes, but I'm also really happy that we're recording it because there's too many gems to take notes for everything, and I'll miss something. So thank you so much. And on this question of giving back, I mean, what you've heard are leaders who are all giving back. That's exactly what they're doing. And there's no better example of that than all the panelists and everyone that you've been listening to today, because everyone's been giving back and being ambassadors for this work. And so, I think we can all agree with that. And for me, I think we've heard so much today about the role of institutions, the role of HBUs, academic institutions, and the many things that they can do. I mean, I think about what Dr. Allen said about hone the essential skills, and talking about the importance of what education can do, what liberal arts education, languages, looking at the institutions, what they can offer in terms of fellowships. I love the CIEE passport caravan. I never heard of that before. But having these institutions provide an opportunity to have a place where these that we can find these fellowships, find the academic background that is needed, find the mentors that are needed, to push all of this forward. And that's what these institutions are doing. And also, they're not just institutions in terms of institutions, but they're education, and they're promoting our next generation. And also, the importance of having the faculty, the administrators, the presidents, the provosts, people running the international centers. These are all part of the institutional network that is promoting the goals of WCAPS, promoting the goals of education, promoting the goals of being global citizens, promoting global leaders. And you cannot replace that. And I guess the last thing I'll mention is, when Dr. Pierce Burnett talked about the importance of policy, and that policy actually plays a role in some of this too, and the role that can play and institutions can play. So I think that we have seen today a lot of examples of that. So I'll turn it back over to you, Lindsay.
Yes, I completely agree with everything that you said. The policy piece is incredibly important as well. We have to think systemically and intentionally about internationalization, and that obviously always begins with the policy piece. Shambalia, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts in terms of internationalization, bringing that to individuals and as well as institutions?
For me, it's something that's very near and dear to me. And I always look at it through an African American lens. Being an African American woman, being a descendant of enslaved Africans here inside the United States, us as African Americans, our culture is very influential. In the same breath, is also co-opted a lot, as well as we have a tendency to become invisible in other people's minds. And when I think about the international space, I always think about how come my culture is not seen and respected on the same level. In addition to that, why are we not including the issues that we as African Americans are experiencing with inside the global conversation when we're talking about peace and security? Why are we not including the African American culture in there? Why, when we're speaking about human rights violations, why are we not including the issues that the African American community is experiencing? This week, I was very intentional about doing this launch this week because on January 24th kicks off International Education Week. And every year, I'm just like really excited about international education, but yet, however, I'm like the same issues that a lot of people experience when it comes to access to education, when it comes to access to resources and things of that sort, our HBCUs are experiencing the same things. So therefore, internationalization is really critical in regards to making sure that our students, our alumni, our faculty are seen with the same expertise and seen as important in regards to receiving that same knowledge, which eventually trickles down to making sure that us as a culture, us as an ethnicity is represented on a global stage. Because I've been saying this ever since I realized that international relations was going to be my major. I always said my ultimate goal is to hold global governance responsible for the human rights atrocities committed towards African Americans, because we were a part of the internationalization of race and racism, of slavery, and we're not included within inside that global space. And so to be able to expose our HBCUs and engage our HBCUs within inside this space, we have a opportunity and a responsibility to make sure that they have access to every resource that any other institution has as well. And I can only say that my foundation in entering into this space is my parents. My parents always said education starts in a household, and they're absolutely right. And it starts in a household. They exposed us to the international, they exposed us to the international beauty of our ethnicity. Within inside the African diaspora, we celebrated Kwanzaa. That was our first introduction to learning a second language, was learning the Swahili terms. Lo and behold, who would have thought that years later, I ended up living and working in Mombasa, Kenya. So yeah.
Those are all very salient points. Just to add, I think, again, we have to consider these topics as a both and, right? So we need to be cognizant of how this impacts our HBCU students, but also our international students as well. They are coming to our campuses. They also want to have access to educational opportunities. And so we need to be mindful of how we are also supporting those students as well. We are out of time. I can't believe that we're there. But before we go, we have to make sure that we continue this momentum, this energy. We want people to know, how are they going to stay connected with WCAPS HBCU Connection. Tell us how we can still stay involved.
Ooh, yes. I am so excited about this question. But first and foremost, before I delve into that question, I want to do one thing first. I want to first give a shout out to Maher. Is he on?
Yes.
Maher, are you on? Can we see your face? Yay! Maher has jumped in and really assisted us a lot in regards to all the technology and anything and everything that you could think of. In addition to that, Maher, you want to share with everyone your educational background?
Sure. I'm an alumnus of Lincoln University of Missouri.
I get so excited when I hear that because my parents are also alumnus of Lincoln University, Missouri. In addition to that, I also want to shout out Netta. I'm not sure if she is still on or not.
I think she had to catch a train.
Well, Netta has been there with us as well from start to finish in regards to helping us build this initiative, helping us put together all of the tools and resources we needed to be able to build the website and get the information out to everyone. And I'm truly, 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 truly thankful to you both. How to get involved. Oh my gosh, you guys just don't know how excited I am. So first and foremost, please go to the website that is WCAPS.org, HBCU Connection. Go to WCAPS, WCAPS.org/HBCU Connection to become fully knowledgeable about our initiative, our goals, our purpose, the path and direction that we are going in with building this initiative. And we are completely open to all of the innovative thoughts and ideas to contribute. Within the next few weeks, February, by February, you will be receiving information from us in regards to the next steps and how everyone can be involved. We are looking forward to building out a team to help us put forth some of these initiatives and programs that we already have in our mind and also inside of our books to go forth with. If you want to reach out to us, you can contact us at hbcuconnection@wcaps.org. And I want everyone to please be aware that if you are a part of the HBCU community, if you are interested in supporting the HBCU community, if you attended a HBCU or if you did not attend a HBCU, if you are a supporter of just developing, continuing to pour into our institutions within inside this global space, we would love to have you come and be a part of the growth of the institution of this initiative. In addition to that, I cannot express enough. Please go to WCAPS.org and become a member. It's free of charge. And we have so many projects and working groups to be a part of. This brainchild, this passion project that Ambassador Jenkins put together is so phenomenal. I want to give a sincere shout out to my friend and my soror, Sabrina Curtis, who contacted me and told me about the official launch of WCAPS in DC, brought me to this space, and a year or two later, here I am. So go to WCAPS.org to become a member. Like I said before, it is free of charge. And you can also go into the chat and you can see all of the links of how to contact us. In addition to that, I did post all the links to the bios of all of our panelists and moderators today, so you could be able to get a full background on the phenomenal work that they're doing. But yes, that's how you can get involved. We are open to we're open to HBCUs in general, HBCU students, faculty, and alumni, because we know that there is a space for everyone within inside this initiative.
Final thoughts, Ambassador Jenkins, I'm coming to you.
Oh, thank you. Really, I just want to say thank you to everyone once again. And I really appreciate everyone being here. I want to appreciate Lindsay for helping us put this event together. Maher, Netta, all of the panelists, my two board members, Asha and Crystal, Juanita, our leader for our Ghana chapter, and of course, Shambalia, for bringing this idea to WCAPS. When I first started WCAPS, I was always hoping we can do something with our HBCUs and MSI. So this is so wonderful that this is happening. So thank you, Shambalia. And of course, thank you for Sabrina Curtis for bringing Shambalia to us. So with that, I'll say goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you all for joining. And please look out for the on the WCAPS website. I'm not sure, but check your emails. If you registered with us, then you'll be able to get information on how to access the recording of this conference. Thank you all and have a wonderful evening.
Bye.